Assalamualaikum, dear students. Our today's topic for discussion is a story, The Scarecrow, written by Satyajit Ray. It is lesson number 5 of 12th class English Hour 2nd. Let's first know what is Scarecrow. A scarecrow is a model of a person dressed in old clothes and put in a field of growing crops to frighten birds away. Or we can say anything that appears terrifying but offers no danger. So, The Scarecrow, written by Satyajit Ray. Let's first know about the writer. Let me give you a brief introduction about the writer. Dear students, Satyajit Ray was born in Calcutta, now called Kolkata, in 1921. He died in 1992 after graduating from Presidency College, Kolkata in 1940. He studied art at Rabindranath Tagore's University in Shantiniketan, West Bengal. He was a prolific writer and is remembered for his short stories. He has left behind over a dozen volumes of short stories, which are read with great interest. Ray was a prolific filmmaker too. During his lifetime, he directed 36 films comprising features, documentaries, and short stories. In March 1992, a month before his death, he was awarded the Oscar for Lifetime Achievements by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science. In the same year, he was also honored with the Bharat Ratna by Indian government. This was about writer Satyajit Ray. Now let me give you a brief introduction about the story, that is The Scarecrow. Dear students, The Scarecrow, the story Scarecrow, written by Satyajit Ray, is suspenseful story. It is suspenseful story. It is beautifully written and makes the reader wonder about how things transpired in the story. The story depicts the ignorance of Indian mass who believes in witchcraft. It also highlights the plight of poor human soul and its sufferings. Satyajit Ray is a class in himself, and we can see the glimpses of his brilliance as we read the story. Now, let us understand the first part of the summary of this story. Dear students, Mriganko Babu was a popular and famous writer. A club in Durgapur invited him to a cultural function in order to felicitate him. He had to travel by car. When he was returning after the function, his car ran out of the petrol. It was due to the carelessness of his driver Sudhir. Mriganko Babu did not lose temper. Sudhir said that he would bring some petrol from Panagar, so Mriganko Babu gave him money to bring petrol. Mriganko Babu felt that he would have to wait for at least 2.5 hours. Dear students, Mriganko Babu Babu was a good-natured man. He usually did not scold his driver or servants, but the thought of sitting for more than 2.5 hours in the car made him irritable. Mriganko Babu sat in his car. He did not believe in superstitions. He smoked a few cigarettes. It was the end of January. All the crops had been removed from the fields. There were empty fields for miles. There was a dark forest on the eastern side. On the western side, things were not different. In the middle of a field was a scarecrow. Although it was winter, he began to feel warm in the sun for a while. He returned to his car, took out a detective novel, but he could not continue reading it. Two ambassador cars and a lorry happened to pass by them. One of the cars was going in the direction of Kolkata. None of the drivers waited to ask if he needed any help. A local breeze began to blow. He felt cold. It could be cooler after some time. It was already 5 o'clock. He felt that Sudhir had landed him into trouble. He began to think of a plot for the story. The Bharat magazine had asked for a story, but he had not yet written for them. A plot had started to form in his mind. Even during the short journey from Durgapur, he found sitting in the car boring. He felt lonely. There was someone else. It was the scarecrow. It stood in a winter crop of a patch of land. A bamboo pole had been fixed vertically on the ground. Another was placed horizontally across it. The two ends of the second pole stretched like two arms. A shirt had been put on this. Its sleeves covered its arm. On the free end of the vertical pole, an earthen pot had been placed upside down. The pot had been painted black. Big eyes had been drawn on it with white paint. Birds were frightened of this figure. Sunlight appeared through a crack and fell on the scarecrow. Mriganko Babu saw that the scarecrow was wearing a printed shirt. Mriganko Babu had been seen that the shirt had seen the shirt before. This time the time was 20 minutes past 4. He took some tea from the flask. He felt a little warmer. Another ambassador car passed. Sudhir had not yet come. The sun was about to set in just about 5 minutes. A reddish light fell on the scarecrow. Sudhir would not come for another hour. Mriganko Babu continued to feel drawn towards that figure. He looked steadily at it. In a few minutes he noticed a few things which made his heart beat faster. He wondered if its appearance had changed somewhat, or his two arms had lowered a little. He wondered if it was standing a little less stiffly and more like a real man. The black pot also seemed similar. He began to ask himself if the figure of Scarecrow could come to life, but he was sure that the Scarecrow had moved. It was moving towards him. It was walking with a limp, but it still had two legs. Instead of earthen pot, it had human head, but it still had the smart shirt, same shirt on and the slightly dirty dhoti. The Scarecrow even addressed Mriganko as Babu. It was human voice. He had recognized it. It was the voice of Abhiram, who had been Mriganko Babu's servant many years ago. His village used to be somewhere in this region. He was from Mankar. It was the name of the station before Panagar. Thank you very much. आज इतना ही. We will complete his second part tomorrow in the next lesson, inshallah.